Okay, so I thought you guys might be interested to see how I actually edit one of my photos. All of my photos are captured as RAW files, so they do need some processing before I can send them to the printer for printing, or if I print them myself or share them online. So the reason I do shoot RAW files is they do capture more information than what the camera will capture on its own and left to process the image by itself. So I'm going to start with this image here. This was the one I titled Spring Morning in Monument Cove, and it's that file right there. So I'm going to open it up into Photoshop. Um, all I really do in Photoshop for the most part is color and contrast adjustments. Um, it is fairly simple and self-explanatory, but I thought you'd like to see what the process is here. So I'm going to this is my overall photo, and I'm going to go through, this is what I do for probably 99% of all the images I take. It's the same thing almost every time. I usually pull the highlights way down, and you can see how that brings out more detail in the clouds there. And I'll push the shadows up a little bit, and you can see how that helps with the bringing detail out of the trees up in this upper right corner here. The dehaze filter will just eliminate a little bit of haze, and I'll just do that. Not too much, not too crazy. Now you can see I have this bright area over here, and I want to subdue that a little bit, so I'm going to use this graduated neutral density tool here to darken that. And I have it set, it's a little too blue right now, so I'm going to bring that back to 0. And then I'm going to pull the highlights. The highlights are down already a little bit from a previous setting, and I actually might warm this up a little bit too, just to bring that a little bit warmer. So that is, I will check here my lens corrections. All lenses have a little bit of distortion to them, so this enables me to fix that if I need to. Everything else, this is pretty much the way I leave it coming out of the RAW file. I have a recipe that I will use in Photoshop to bring out some more color and detail. This image obviously does look a little bit flat. That's not quite what I saw when I captured it, but in order to make sure that I capture as much detail as possible, I do let the camera convert it this way so that I can get what I want out of it later. So I'm going to go into one of my Photoshop plugins here. This is a color and contrast adjustment filter. So once this loads, I will be able to make my adjustments to the color and contrast, and it should be pretty much done. It applied its own color and contrast adjustment already. I have a recipe here that will give it a little more pop to it, and you can see now I brought out some more highlight and some more highlight color up in the sky, some more detail in the trees and in the rocks as well. And that looks pretty darn good right off the bat, so I'm just going to hit OK. And while this is saving the image, I'll do some local adjustments to the image just to kind of tweak it and finish it off in places where I feel like it can use a little bit more pop. But see that's a big difference from where it started coming out of the camera to where I came from. That's out of the camera, and that's a little bit more finished. One thing I see here is that these whites, the white highlights in the wave crashing on the rocks, it did go a little bit blue, and I have a way to correct for that. I'm going to use a different color and contrast adjustment filter. This one allows me to do it in certain areas. So I'm going to create a control point here, a control point here, and a control point up here. So they'll just all overlap a little bit. I'm going to select them all and group them. The reason I'm grouping them is I want them all to have the same adjustment. And like I said, you can see this is a little bit blue here, so I'm just going to warm it up a little bit and get rid of some of the blue. That's probably too much. And that's a little bit more neutral. I'm going to add a little more contrast to it just to make that jump out a little bit more. And a little structure brings out a little more detail so you can see more of the individual splashes there. Then I'm going to go over here, create a control point over the water here. Just add a little more color saturation there, not too much. And I'm going to go up in the trees and create some control points here, and I'll group those so they're the same, and I just want to bring out a little bit more of the green. The cameras have a tendency to throw away some color and some detail and subdue things a little bit more. When I shot film, I used to shoot a lot of Fuji Velvia, which is a very color-saturated, contrasty film, and it created a really nice color palette, but it was very kind of in-your-face, saturated color, and I tended to like that, so I tended to go for that quite a bit. I'm just going to go into the sky over here, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more warmth to that. Maybe darken it down just a bit, just to get a little bit more distinction in the sky. Not too much. We're not going to go crazy with that, but that looks pretty good. And then finally, I'm just going to work on these rocks down here a little bit. This is very similar to, if you ever did any darkroom work, it's very similar to kind of dodging and burning in the darkroom, where you would work on different areas to brighten or darken them as well. So you do get a pretty nice finished image that way. And I'm going to hide that, bring that down, and I'm going to move that over. And now you can see pretty much the finished image of spring morning in Monument Cove. Didn't take me very long. I don't do a lot of crazy manipulations to get my shots. Once in a while I will if it's necessary, but overall I like to have it be very simple. I try to get as much information right as possible in capture, and then simply finish up by making my small color and contrast adjustments in post, so that I can then produce the final image and have it ready for printing when someone is ready to have it hang on their walls. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.